Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our remote meeting of the Statutory Licensing Subcommittee. I apologise for the late start. We were having a little problem in the beginning getting everyone lined up. I'm Councillor Carr. I'm chair of the subcommittee, and I'm joined by Councillors Jan Blakey, Carol Hampson, Amanda Hopgood, and Karen Little. Please note that this meeting is being recorded live to the Council's website and will be available to be viewed for a minimum of 6 months. I would like to give a warm welcome to any members of the public or media who are watching this live feed of the meeting. Before I commence with the formal business of the agenda, I would like to cover some of the housekeeping issues for us all to follow in order for the meeting to run as efficiently as possible. For those participating in the meeting, if you could please only speak when invited to speak by myself as chair. Keep your microphone on mute at all times unless invited to speak. Members, if you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function and that will indicate to me that you wish to speak. Once invited to speak, please introduce yourself with your name and position unless you've already introduced yourself earlier in the meeting. If I lose connection, please note that Councillor Hampson will take over in my absence until connection is restored. Moving on to the agenda, 1, apologies for absence. Jill Errington, please.
There are no apologies for absence, Chair.
Item 2, substitutes. Jill.
We have no substitute members, Chair.
Item 3 is declarations of interest. Items 4 and 5 on the agenda are applications for the grant of a club premises certificate in respect of John Snow College and South College, Durham. I would like to welcome to the parties to the hearing Ricky Corn on behalf of the applicant, Professor Tim Luckhurst accompanying the applicant, Mr. Andrew Foster, the objectors. We are also joined by the licensing team leader, Helen Johnson, and the legal advisor to the subcommittee this afternoon, Stephen Buston. Please note that all 5 members will sit during the hearing today, but only 3 will make the decision. I will now ask the legal advisor to explain why we do this and to run through the procedure. Stephen Buston, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, committee, and to those present. With your permission, I'd just like to address you regarding a number of points, including the issue that you've just referenced. We do have 5 councillors online here today, but just to make it clear that only 3 will make their deliberations at the end of the hearing. That number is prescribed by law, but we have 2 extra councillors here who are going to just sit in, just in case there are any issues during the hearing, such as a member's feed dropping off, or if there's illness, or if a conflict of interest arises through the evidence. At the end of the hearing, 3 councillors will make the decision. I just thought it important to explain that to everybody who might be listening and to all of you here now, because obviously the documentation will suggest only 3 councillors when you've got 5 here today. That's why. Just addressing on a couple of other points, committee, you'll be aware that you face a determination today on 2 club premises certificates. You'll have had a chance to read the extensive written representations from 19 objectors to both certificates. So far as I can read, and you'll have read as well, there's quite a body of documentation. The representations for both certificates appear to be identical. So I believe it's appropriate, in fact, it's reasonable and proportionate to deal with both applications together. And you can do that in accordance with Regulation 21 of your licensing hearing regulations. That doesn't stop, obviously, you questioning on each party individually on each individual premises. And that may well come out in the evidence. Are we all content to proceed on that basis? I mean, if there's any objection to that, let me know now. And perhaps I'll take your silence if nobody's putting their hand up or anybody's saying anything, as we can proceed on that basis, Chair.
Stephen, if I can just get every one of the councillors to agree to that. Right. Do you agree to that, councillors?
Agreed.
OK, agreed. That's fine. And then the objectors and the applicant, can you agree as well?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
OK, that's fine. Stephen, we'll just proceed in that case.
That's fine, Chair. My other point, obviously, is just to explain a little bit about the order of play today and try to make proceedings move along as smoothly as possible, because I appreciate it's a virtual forum, maybe new to everyone. So obviously, I thank you all for coming. You're going to firstly hear from Helen Johnson, who's the licensing team lead at the council, regarding the applications for the club certificates. All parties are going to have an opportunity to ask questions of Mrs. Johnson, but I'd ask you to please limit those to questions about her report, questions rather than statements, because everyone taking part today will be given an opportunity to present their own case and to make their statements at some stage. After we've heard from Mrs. Johnson, we will then hear representations from those parties who've chosen to join us regarding their objections. That'll be Mr. Foster. Again, all parties will have an opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Foster if they wish to. And then finally, we can hear from the applicant regarding their application for these club certificates, with questions from all parties following this. Once those representations have been made and all questions have been asked, the parties will be asked to sum up, and we can ask the licensing officer, then Mr. Foster, and then the applicant to do that in that order. And then after that, the subcommittee will retire to deliberate the decision in private, and all parties will be notified by telephone. Following that, all parties will receive a formal written decision notice outlining the decision and the reasons for that decision. So, as the legal advisor today is saying, just please note that I may interrupt the proceedings if I consider it appropriate to do so. I'm trying not to do that too often, people, so only when I have to. Does anyone have any questions of the procedure before we proceed any further? With a show of hand, perhaps, or if anyone wants to ask any questions about procedure before we go on. Chair?
Does everybody agree?
I think we can take silence as agreement, Chair. With right. Your permission, Chair, I think we should hear from Helen Johnson regarding her report.
I'm going to suggest that Helen begins now.
Thank
Helen,
you.
Please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. As introduced, I'm Helen Johnson, licensing team leader for Durham County Council, and I'll go through the reports for both the college applications. So we've got the grant. This is a grant of a club premises certificate, and one for John Snow College at South Road, Durham. The other is in regards to South College Pitcairn Building at South Road in Durham. The applications were received on the 31st of January 2020, and the consultation period, the 28-day consultation period, ended on the 28th of February. Plans showing the locations of the premises are attached to Appendix 2 of the reports. The application was originally requested for the supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises and the provision of regulated entertainment. So that'll be your recorded music, dancing, live music, etc. from 10 AM until 2 AM on a Monday to Sunday. The original application also requested permission for up to 3 outdoor events per year during June or July, involving the provision of alcohol and regulated entertainment. I'll just go on to during the consultation, we did receive for each application. So for John Snow, we received 24 objections, but 5 withdrew. And for South Road, we received 25 objections and 6 withdrew. In the end, we've got 19 outstanding representations, and they're all the same for both applications. We received no comments from the Planning Department, Safeguarding Children Partnership, the police and the Environmental Health. They all responded with no comments to the applications. If I can just move on to Appendix 4, which is at page 84, and I believe it will be reiterated in the report following that, but with them being both the same, at page 84, at Appendix 4, it does go into modification that the applicant had made to the applications. If I just go through them in a bit more detail, so supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, it's been reduced down to Sunday to Thursday, 10 AM until midnight, Friday and Saturday, 10 AM until 1 AM, and on up to 3 occasions per year, notified with 28 days in advance to the licensing authorities and local residents, 10 AM to 2 AM. For plays, films, indoor sporting events, live music, recorded music, performances of dance and similar entertainment, again, Sunday to Thursday, 10 AM until midnight, Friday and Saturday, 10 AM until 1 AM, and on 3 occasions per year notified 28 days in advance to the licensing authority and local residents, 10 AM until 2 AM. The 3 college events which are looking to be held are for supply of alcohol and regulated entertainment indoors, 10 AM until
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jill. I also apologise, but I'm going straight back to Mr. Foster to continue his objection. Mr. Foster, please.
Thank you. I can't quite remember exactly where I was up to, but I think.
In fact, can I help, Mr. Foster? Because I'm writing down everything that you're saying.
Okay.
You mentioned that obviously you felt there was a possibility that the licence could fall into a third-party hands due to possibly due to insolvency risk, but I think you were due to move on to another point.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I've probably covered everything I was going to cover. But yeah, I mean, I think the risk of third parties being involved is definitely there, whether through insolvency or otherwise. But you know, our main concern is really in relation to the noise and disturbance that we feel will be caused, and based upon our experiences of living here. So if there's already been a nuisance and disturbance, I think the the licensing committee just need to take into consideration the residents that are living nearby and only grant a license that, in the circumstances, is reasonable and proportionate to the area where it is and the site of it. There are a lot of residents nearby that should be given proper consideration, and if particularly in relation to the outdoor events, which have already caused a nuisance, and that the concern is that would continue. So I'll leave it there for now, and thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Mr. Foster. Helen, do you have any questions of Mr. Foster, please?
There's no questions, Chair. I just wanted to clarify in regards to like when Mr. Foster was saying about if it goes into somebody else's hands and things like that. Yeah. All I just wanted to say, Mr. Foster, is that with a club premises certificate, unlike a premises license where you can transfer it into somebody else's name just by doing an application, with a club premises certificate you can't actually do that, because the club's got to be formed with a chairman, a secretary, a treasurer. So it's got to be a properly formed committee. And if that committee is no longer in existence, then that club premises certificate just can't transfer to somebody else. It's got to be a brand new application again. So it would have to come through something like this again. Right. So it was just to clarify that point, and hopefully that reassures something from your point of view.
That is good, actually. I hadn't realised that. I thought it was going to be, a general premises licence which would be transferred if the land transferred. So that's good.
No, it's a club premises certificate. So you've got to. There's quite a few restrictions in terms of to have a club premises certificate. You've got to have so many members. There's got to be a properly formed committee in place, club rules and everything like that. So I'm sure the applicants will go through that in more detail, but it was just to confirm, unlike a premises license, you can just transfer it by filling an application in, and so it could go from you to me. Yeah. Unlike with a club, it's got to be a properly formed committee and everything like that.
Okay.
Thanks very much for that explanation, Helen. I think the members were aware of that, but I think it's well done that you've explained it anyway. Mr. Cohen or Professor Lockhurst, do you have anything you wish to speak to Mr. Foster regarding?
Yes, please.
Mr. Cohen.
Professor Lockhurst will no doubt communicate the importance of colleges, the cafe bars and the college events, and also the university's determination to build and develop a strong relationship with the local community. However,
Mr. Cohen, sorry, if I just stop you there. I appreciate that you're wanting to make representations, but you'll have your time to do that. It's specifically whether you have any questions about what Mr. Foster said, or whether you have any questions you want to ask Mr. Foster.
No, sorry, I was going to make the same point as Helen, but
don't worry, you'll have your chance to speak later. We've got to try and keep everything in order. That's all. So, have you got any specific questions to Mr. Foster that you want to ask now? Professor Lockhurst, have you got any questions? Chair, I don't know whether your committee has any questions they want to ask Mr. Foster.
Well, I don't know. Let's see if Mr. Lockhurst has any. If Professor Lockhurst has any.
No, again, thank you, Chair. I have no questions for Mr. Foster at this stage. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much. Does any member of the committee have any questions? Amanda, you've got a question. Amanda?
Yeah.
If you can ask your question, please. You're on mute, Amanda. Amanda, you're on mute.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
right.
Excellent.
Sorry. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Foster. When you bought this property, I'm looking at the times, and a lot of your objection is around the 2 AM time and the licensing time. So I think the question I'm asking, were you expecting this building to have a license of some description when you bought it, and is it just the type of license that's a problem in terms of the time and the outdoor provision that they're asking for?
Yeah, I think I don't know how much thought we gave it at the time. It was probably about 3.5 years ago when we actually decided to buy the house, and just over 3 years since we moved in. But we were aware that there was university development taking place. So yeah, I suppose in that sense you would expect some form of license. We didn't know anything about the outdoor events. That came as a bit of a surprise. But certainly, since there are other colleges in the area with licenses, yeah, I mean, the expectation would be that there would be some form of license granted.
Thanks, Amanda. Anyone else? Just to clarify that then, Mr. Foster, are you saying that it's mainly the extra events that you're concerned about, the 3 statutory days that they're wanting and the 3 additional days? Is that what you're really complaining about?
That's my main concern, is certainly that, yes, yeah.
Right, I think that would help us as well. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, nothing major. It's just obviously you've referenced it today, Mr. Foster, and in your written submissions about how you've already suffered a nuisance and disturbance by other campuses. I'm just wondering, and it's no criticism, can you tell us, did you report that to anybody at the council?
Yeah, I flagged it up at the time. I can dig out the correspondence, but I didn't realise that those events actually happened. So I understand that the particular event that I'm referencing and which I made a complaint about was a temporary event license. I don't know exactly how it's described, but it was some kind of temporary license that was granted for that one event. So, and I didn't know that they would take place, but it was at a neighbouring college somewhere else. These are obviously closer, so there is a genuine concern that there's going to be more of a disturbance if they're given the permission to do. Was it three per year, 3 in June and July?
That's what the current license is asking for. Yes, that's what the request is.
We know I could dig that correspondence out.
No, it's not. I just wanted to know. Do you remember who you complained to, or
the licensing department of the council? Yeah.
You think it was about a temporary event notice?
Yes, yeah.
Right. Yeah. You realise, regardless of what happens here today with regards to the licence, that a temporary event notice can still be applied for regardless.
That's true, but my point was that if they're part of the licence, then they'll be able to hold them every year. Whereas if they're judged on a case-by-case basis, then that's better for us, because if they are causing a problem, then I'm sure a lot of people will make it known that it's a problem.
No, that's fine. I appreciate your argument. I just wanted you to understand that. That's fine. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. Mr. Cohen, do you want to ask any questions? Oh, sorry, you've already asked your questions, haven't you? Has any members got any further questions or not? In that case, what we're going to do is we're going to go on to the presentation by the applicant. I don't know who's going to do this. Is it Mr. Cohen first and then Mr. Lockhurst? Is that the order? Okay, Mr. Cohen, if you can begin, please. Can I make a suggestion to you? I think one of the main things that everybody be more aware of is your pages 80, I think it's 84 onwards. I think if you refer to the amendments that you've made, that would probably help everybody more. And if you refer to those pages, if we've got all the pages, so you can refer to which sections you want to refer to, and then we can all follow you.
Yeah, I don't have the exact document in front of me on the screen. I've got a bit of an IT issue, but I'll certainly link it to that document.
I'm sure Mr. Lockhurst can assist you. Yeah. Professor Lockhurst, sorry.
So before Tim Lockhurst communicates the importance of colleges, cafe bars and college events, and including college days, and communicates the college's determination to engage with a positive relationship with our local residents, I would just like to say that the university has always been mindful of its local residents and the impact that any licensing activities might have on them. And for that basis, the university decided to apply for a club premise certificate in the first place, which, as everybody will know, has more restrictions upon it than a premise license. However, following consideration of all feedback, including from the City of Durham Parish Council and local residents, Durham University has amended the club premises certificate application to broadly align with Durham County Council's framework of recommended termination of hours for the retail sale of alcohol. The cafe bar, and I want to reiterate the point, it is a cafe bar. It is a safe and compliant space, primarily used by our students and their friends. The cafe bar is of limited capacity. The bar space actually has a capacity of 75, and the adjacent common room 75, creating a maximum capacity of 150 in each one of the colleges. The cafe bar also has provision of hot and cold food, as well as hot and non-alcoholic beverages. The design of these cafe bars is without a traditional cellar. Instead, it can only dispense 2 alcoholic draft beverages that are fed from very small kegs underneath the bar counter. So I wanted to make the point really that we're not talking about huge drinking houses here. We're talking about a cafe bar spaces predominantly. The cafe bar and common room comply with the university's college bar policy, which stipulates the latest closing times of 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and midnight on Fridays and Saturdays, unless there is a specific and unlikely authorization from the college principal. At times when this would be authorized, they're very predictable, and also they might, for example, be authorized to help licensing objectives. For example, when the Licensing Act 2003 was brought in, it made recommendations to extend hours to a degree to help disbursement of people from establishments. We're not saying we would use that, but equally it's helpful to have that option if it was beneficial to both the college and its local residents. The cafe bar and common room are also located and positioned to minimise nuisance to our neighbours, and also likely travel paths into Durham City, avoiding direct links with neighbourhood residential areas. The application strongly support the 4 licensing objectives and is fully compliant, we believe, with Durham County Council's statement of licensing policy. The cafe bar promotes absolute best practice in terms of governance, processes, procedures, including a robust noise management plan, training, CCTV, and modern acoustic building design. More detail is found within the document that you refer to, Councillor. Whilst the university contributes to the local economy, each college needs to be financially sustainable within the context of competition from other undergraduate colleges, and I make the specifics in terms of undergraduate colleges. This requires parity of facilities to give our prospective students parity of the Durham experience, and that requires, to a degree, a parity of club premises certificate licence. Financial sustainability has always been a challenge. However, in recent times, this challenge has only heightened. The college is, I'd just like to say, in terms of the request for 3 events internally with extended hours, I would like to make the point that the applications are very specific in terms of that's indoors only. And I'd also like to make the point that it means indoors within the special constructed cafe bar spaces which exceed acoustic minimum specifications. And I'd also like to make the point that in terms of the 3 events that the applications ask for per college, these days are predictable. As we've discussed already, they tend to happen late June, early July. Each college has a duty of care to its students, and we believe that the level of supervision, processes and procedures and oversight that having these events on site brings is the safest way for us to provide the experience for our students, and also hope to alleviate challenges like those experienced for external college events in Hardwick Hall in 2016 in relation to the Champagne Society. The college is fully committed to building a good and beneficial relationship with our neighbours, and hope that the committee and residents view the reduced requirements as satisfactory. We would like to thank Durham Constabulary and Durham County Council's Environmental Health Authority for reviewing the application in detail. We would also like to thank the City of Durham Parish Council for considering the amended application with the significantly reduced licensing hours and subsequently withdrawing their objection. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Corner. Professor Lockhurst, I'm going to ask you to speak now, and then when there's questions, there'll be questions of you both, if you're acceptable. Is that okay?
Absolutely acceptable.
Professor Lockhurst.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Carr, Chairman. And thanks for the opportunity to speak to all of the councillors. We really do appreciate the fact that you've called this meeting virtually at this short notice. It's a really valuable opportunity. I'm very grateful to you. I'd like to start by stressing the importance of Durham colleges and the essential identity that they have and the role they play within the university, because there's been a suggestion that the college could somehow share facilities and events with its neighbours. But Durham is a collegiate university. It's been a collegiate university since it was created in 1832. And colleges are so much more than just halls of residence. They are vibrant communities in which a diverse range of students from all over the UK, the wider world, United States, China, Europe, come together, and they are the centres of their social existence. They are places where students do all of their socialising, where they first engage in sport, where they engage in drama, where they engage in all of the debating activities and current affairs activities which are inherent to student life at Durham. So colleges must have their own identity and their own traditions. And South College, as a new college, which I'm very proud to be launching, which I've come to Durham to launch, must have those identities, that identity. At Durham, after all, students choose their college. They're not simply allocated, and they regard their college as the centre of their communal life. And the JCR and Cafe Bar are a crucial part of that communal life. They're not simply places where students can go for a sandwich, a cup of coffee, or in the evening, an alcoholic drink. They're places where we will conduct debates, where we'll conduct seminars, where we'll invite visiting speakers to come to the college. South is a self-catered college, as is John Snow, and for that reason, our cafe bars are additionally important. They're one of the sole places in the college where our students can gather, we can meet together, can plan, share ideas, or simply relax. And we want our students to socialise in our cafe bars. They're the places where we can supervise them. They're the places where we have the most control over their conduct and where we can ensure that they are operating in a civilised manner and under the rules of civilised conduct which the university requires them to abide by and which, as college principal, I'm responsible for enforcing. So these are genuinely safe spaces. They are civilised spaces. They're spaces we would prefer our students to use than to have them drinking in pubs in the city centre, if I'm entirely honest. We want students to use it for that reason, and we are determined that they should use it in such a way as to develop an entirely amicable relationship with our neighbours. I can't stress how important that is to me. Since I've been appointed principal, I've had 2 public meetings with our neighbours at Mount Oswald. I've enjoyed them enormously. I've invited many of our neighbours to join the college's senior common room, to come and take part in the life of the college and to become engaged, because we regard community outreach and community inclusion as absolutely vital. Durham is a great city, it's a historic city, and it's a city which is extremely generous to the university which it plays host to, and we want to be good partners. That's why I've extended the invitation to neighbours. Several neighbours at Mount Oswald have already agreed to join the senior common room at South. I'm delighted that that's the case. I've also made it very clear that we are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to respond to any complaints. We have porters on duty every hour of every day during term time. I have shared my own telephone number with people who've attended the meetings, and I'm more than willing to hear from residents if they have any concerns. Now, finally, with regard to the external events, the 3 planned events in June and July every year, it is a tradition at Durham that colleges have a college day when they celebrate the achievements of the college. It is a tradition that they have a summer ball and a Christmas ball. Now, I think that the Christmas ball will take place entirely internally, so we can ignore that one. In the summer, it's about the summer ball and the celebration of the graduation period at the university. Every college in Durham has such a summer ball. They are enormously popular events. They're valuable to the college, but they're also valuable to the alumni, and they are a crucial part of the identity of the college. Students learn a great deal from planning and arranging them. It's one of the ways in which they learn leadership skills and one of the ways in which they learn to take responsibility for ensuring decent conduct. So we would be determined if we possibly can, to run a very good ball. We know it can't go on too late. I am myself the father of 4 children, and I know what it's like to have them disturbed when they're small. We don't want to disturb our neighbours. We simply want to give our students the same experience as they get at every one of the other 16 undergraduate colleges at Durham, because if we were not to do that, South would be regarded as a lesser member of the university community, as with John Snow. We're determined that our colleges should be inclusive and that they should be full members of the university, but we will do that with a great deal of responsibility towards our neighbours. I'm sorry if I've spoken for too long, and thanks very much indeed, Chairman.
Fine, as long as you've had enough time to say what you needed to say, Professor. Okay.
Thank you.
Helen, do you have any questions, please, of either Mr. Corn or the Professor?
No, Chair, I don't.
Okay. Does any members have any questions? I'm going to ask you a few questions, both Mr. Corn and Professor Lockhurst. I need to know why you need to have the 3 separate events individually. Can you please tell us?
We wouldn't be certain that we will have 3 events, but I'm sure that we will have a college ball. We will have a college ball because that is the tradition at Durham, and it's a tradition that all of our students like very much, whether they come like me from a comprehensive school in the south of Scotland or from the private schools in the southeast of England. This is one of the things that makes Durham distinctive. It's one of the things for which the students pay a very high student tuition fee, and which makes this university one of the finest student experiences in the country. The students care about these things. They regard them as a way to celebrate their achievement academically, and they also see them competitively as being a way of showcasing just how well their college can do a social event. Now, I know it's difficult for South College to compete with the Castle. It's a very beautiful location. It's probably quite difficult for us to compete with St Mary's, which has got wonderful gardens. But we'll try to do it by being innovative and by being creative in our approach. We'll try to do it by having a really good relationship with our neighbours, because that is a key part, as I say, of our identity as an inclusive college. But it would be regarded as a lesser institution if it weren't able to do that and to run its college ball. After all, the posters for college balls, the experience of running a college ball is something in which students take enormous pride. They put it on their curriculum vitae. They tell their employer that they arranged one. I don't want the students at South to find that they can't do that when the students at every other college in Durham are able to say, I organised a ball, I organised the finances, I organised the security, I was responsible for ensuring that the ticketing was done responsibly. This is part of the way in which we cultivate intelligent, civilised young people who can go out into the world and play leadership roles, and it's a crucial part of their existence. So that's the ball. That's why the balls matter. In terms of college days and the celebrations that take place around graduation, our students work extremely hard. They are combining intensely demanding academic degrees with a range of social activities in which they take enormous pride and which I think contribute greatly to the life of the community here. They like to celebrate their success and to showcase their success. And college days are about celebrating those achievements and celebrating those activities. They're wonderfully sociable activities. They don't usually involve drunkenness. In my experience, they're much more about celebration and collegiality than they are about pure festivity. But again, they're part of the hallmark, one of the identities which colleges take pride in having and which make colleges special. And I know that the students at South don't want to feel that their college is less than any of the others here. Indeed, given our absolute commitment to attracting many more students from the great state schools here in the North East, I very much want them to think that South is not just as good, but better than some of the more traditional colleges. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Were the 10s explained to you fully by the licensing team, how you apply for 10s or not?
Yes, the applications were explained to me in great detail by my team within the university. And I know that my colleague Ricky Cohen has had a great deal of expertise here and has had enormous help from the council's licensing authority. Indeed, the relationship has always been extremely helpful to us because I know that we get good support and advice.
So why would you prefer to have the 3 fixed days instead of applying for them as 10 separately?
Well, we, as I understand it, are simply saying that we will want to have 3 events per year. We haven't specified the exact date,
No.
and that's obviously because we are going to give 28 days notice, but we will know in advance when the university publishes its calendar. We will seek to ensure that we conduct our events in such a way as to minimise inconvenience. In other words, keeping them apart from other neighbouring colleges, ensuring that we make the arrangements in such a way each year to avoid having a concentration of events taking place at one time, and that avoids both parking problems and excessive noise problems. That's the essential reason, Chair.
You've preempted one of my other questions. Well done. Going on from that, the emphasis that you have put on safety is the porter.
Yeah.
Now, I'm wondering if it's only porters at each of the colleges, and you're having these events at all of the colleges on the same day. How are they going to be managed and supervised by the university as a whole?
Oh, well, when I say that the porters are on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's because they are our frontline first responders, and they are on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At South and at John Snow College, we also operate rotas of responsibility by senior officers. I'm on duty myself 24 hours a day for 1 week in 3. My vice president is on duty 24 hours a day, 1 week in 3, and my assistant principal is on duty 24 hours a day for 1 week in 3. So there is always a senior duty officer on call. During the hours between 8 o'clock and 6 o'clock, we will all be present. The additional support within the college is provided by our elected officials, the student leaders on the Junior Common Room Committee. Our president, Richard Freeman, is a very experienced JCR chairman. We also have a very responsible group of second year and third year postgraduate students on our JCR committee, all of whom are in direct contact with the senior officers of the college at all times, and who know that they must not simply contact the porters in the event of there being disturbance, which might, for example, cause a difficulty to our neighbour, which is, by the way, a breach of the university's regulations. They also know that they should contact me or my vice principal immediately to inform us, and that we will take action. I hope again that helps.
It does, because I think that's probably what a number of the complainants have said. They wouldn't know who to contact. So you could actually publish a record on a weekly basis of who was responsible on that basis, so they could be contacted by the respective person as well as the porter.
Chair, it's an excellent point. We have shared, and we are absolutely delighted to share, the rota of who is on duty at South College. As principal, I guarantee that my neighbours will have that information if they want it. And indeed, we are inviting our neighbours to come, as I say, and take part in the college. And I'm delighted that so many of them have already agreed to do so. But yes, of course, we'll share those contact details. No qualms at all.
That's fine. That's answered all the questions I have, unless anyone has any others. Amanda?
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Sorry, Mr. Cohen. Hang on, Amanda. I think Mr. Cohen wanted to come in. I brought you in first.
Sorry, Chair. It was just to say that in addition, Professor Tim Luckhurst, in addition to what Professor Tim Luckhurst just said, in terms of college days, there is always a senior responsible person who is identified, who has an understanding in terms of the policies and the procedures and the public nuisance management plan, including noise management plan. And just to give an example of one of the things that we've specified on the licenses is for all outside amplified music to terminate at 10 p.m, which I'm sure people will be aware is below the requirement, which is essentially if the numbers were below 500, which they're going to be, up until 11 p.m. is actually unregulated. So we're trying to be responsible, and we're trying to be I guess responsible and mindful of our neighbours and the impact that we have upon them.
Fine, thank you. Sorry, Amanda.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on one of the, I think part of the problem with this from the people who are objecting is that it's 2 colleges close together affecting the same neighbours. So if you both have applied for 3 3 licenses to have outdoor activities in June and July, then one of the letters quite rightly says that's up to 6 disturbed evenings in the same vicinity. So it's not 3 when you look at them separately. If it was just 1 evening per college for a ball, I think that might sit more comfortably with people, but then I don't live there, so that's for them to question. But if it's going to be 6 nights, and it's likely to be over a 2 or 3 week period, because you're not, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware that the colleges hold their balls before the exams have taken place. That's most unusual, in which case there is a real small window of opportunity between the end of the exams and when the students leave. And for 6 nights in that small window of opportunity, I do think could be seen as excessive for residents. So that there's that comment. And the other question I wanted to ask is that clearly the college is going, the students are going to be away for quite a long time, out of term. Have you any use with regards to the community for the rooms? Because I have been to Euston Off College, and I do believe that that is an excellent example of how the colleges can work with the communities. And their common room, just like this, the student bar in the summer is available for local residents to use, and children that have clubs and all sorts for residents in there. And I just wondered if any consideration had been given to using this as a community asset outside of term time, please?
Yeah, I'm delighted to address those questions. If you don't mind, I'll do it in reverse order and answer the first one first. We have written into our user agreement for both the hub, the large facility at the college's site at Mount Oswald, and for the multi-use games area, allocated times for local community use. And we're absolutely delighted to have those arrangements in place, and we very much want them to be used by local schools and by the local community. With regard to membership of the use of the college bar, etc., both of the colleges are complete undergraduate and postgraduate colleges, so they will never be entirely empty of students. Our postgraduate students will be here throughout the year, and some of our undergraduate students, perhaps all, including the Junior Common Room committee members, will often be here throughout the summer as well. But of course, you're right, there will be periods of downtime, and that's a time when additional community use will be additionally welcome. I've stressed that we really have invited local residents to join our senior common room. We are particularly keen that we should have them as mentors to help to create that link with the local community, and we know that many of them have really distinctive professional skills which could be really useful to our students as well. So that invitation is not a gimmick, I assure you. I really want members of the senior common room from the local community around South. So that's the second point. Finally, you very reasonably asked the question, what would it be like if there were 6 major events in that period? I think this is a misunderstanding. We've asked for the possibility of a maximum of 3 external events per year per college. The likelihood of all 6 of them taking place in a short period in the summer is, I think, non-existent. There will be 1 South College ball if these licenses are granted, and I think there will be 1 John Snow College ball. There will be 1 college day for South and 1 college day for John Snow. I cannot imagine any other events that would take place in that summer period. You're right that the balls are concentrated in the period just after exams. That's absolutely true. So I would anticipate the possibility that the South College ball and the John Snow College ball could take place within a window of 2 weeks, and that there would be 2 events within those 2 weeks. I think that's the most likely concentration. At maximum, I think that there would be 3 or 4 events in the total period of June and July. I can't imagine there would be 6. The additional application is probably related to a Christmas ball. That would almost certainly at South be inside the hub or inside the bar. I can't imagine it would be warm enough for a great deal of activity outside. And if it were, I'd advise the students against it.
Thanks very much, Professor. You've actually hit the nail on the head. I wrote down 2 because that was what you confirmed. It was going basically 2 rather than 3, and that's what I took account of. Does that help, Amanda?
Can I just come back, because this is one of the problems that we always face in licensing, is that you apply for something then that you're not going to use and don't need, and this is where it causes the disruption with the residents. So you're telling us now that you're not likely to ever need the 6, because
No,
2 of the events.
Not in a 2-week period. I'm not saying that we won't do 3 external events in the course of a year each. I think that we've applied for the permission to do that, notifying 28 days in advance, because we might do 3 events in a year, but I don't think there is any realistic possibility of us doing 6 events in the summer. I think that would be more likely to be an event at Christmas and perhaps College Day later in the year and a college ball for each college. But I can't see us doing it all in summer period. I hope that clarifies. I'm not saying that we won't use the 3, but they certainly won't all be concertinaed into that short period in the summer.
Okay, can I just check then, Colin, with legal, if I can, with Stephen, is that if it is granted with the 6 licensing, despite the fact that this says June and July,
That's
predominantly, and that's what it's saying, that these would take place in June and July. Is there anything that can be put on that to say that there would only be a maximum in any one specific calendar month or any one 2-week period? Because as long as there is a license there to have 6 events a year, you could have them 6 days in a row, or apply to, in theory.
We could, but we do have to apply 28 days in advance, don't we, and to advertise 28 days in advance.
Yes, in short, it's something that can be discussed in deliberations, Councillor. You can adopt your conditions if you feel that that is a restriction you need to put in place.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Does any other councillor have any questions of either Ricky Cohen or Professor Lockhurst? No? In that case, sorry, Mr. Foster, were you wanting to ask a question there or not?
Yeah, I was just looking for the raise hands button, but I couldn't see it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, you can ask a question.
I'd just add to what the councillor said there. I think it's important to recognise that this application does bring about the real risk of 6 events, 3 and 3. Plus, there are already other events taking place in neighbouring colleges who apply on a temporary event licence basis. So this just adds to the number, and that should be, I think that should be considered as well. And the post-exam period.
Mr. Foster, that's fine. We can take that. Have you got any questions?
It's a question you've got to give, Mr. Foster.
Yeah,
you'll have your chance. Don't worry, at the end to summarise your representations. We'll just look at questions.
Yeah. Okay. In relation to something Mr. Cohen said about a noise management plan, that's all very well, but if you've got an outdoor event with large crowds and music, how do you actually manage the noise, or do you just accept that it's going to create noise?
So look, first of all, thank you very much. Yeah, of course, there's multiple areas in terms of where you can manage noise, including setting expectations from the event in the first place, from supervision, but also, you know, I mentioned before about terminating amplified noise at 10 p.m.
10 o'clock, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I just again want to reiterate the point that certain entertainment, including amplified entertainment, is unregulated as long as numbers are below 500 and before 11 p.m. I'd also like to make just another point as well. The vast majority of undergraduate colleges have the requirement for events without the need for a temporary event notice. So I'm not quite sure whether there are, or there certainly can't be many undergraduate colleges that are required to use a temporary event notice for one of their events.
Okay, thank you. Going on now, Stephen Buston, do you have any questions of Professor Lockhurst?
I think everybody has covered everything that I was going to ask, which is useful. I was going to mention about non-term time, but I think you've covered that. I'm just wondering, why is there a need to have a licence from 10 AM? Is that a specific requirement? I mean, I'm just wondering, again, just to harp to what Councillor Hopgood says, is that something that you really need, or is it just, are you looking for flexibility there?
It's a very fair question. The answer is because these are self-catered colleges. I can't stress the extent to which I don't see the South College Cafe Bar as being a bar. I see it as a space in which my students in the morning might well invite a visiting speaker, sit down and drink some coffee, and then have a sandwich at lunchtime. We're operating the bar, we hope, as a bar and cafe between 10 AM and the evening, because it has a multiplicity of purposes, and because it's the only facility at a self-catered college at which the students can get a sandwich, a cup of coffee, a glass of water. It's one of two spaces. We have a library also at South in which they can work during the day. So this is really about the provision of a social facility during the day. It's not about people drinking alcohol at 10 AM. I think I have some fairly irresponsible habits in my first year at university, but I don't remember drinking heavily at that time of the morning. And I will certainly advise my students against developing any such habit.
Thanks very much. That's
Thank
good
you
to
very
hear.
much.
Thank you very much. Right, in that case, what we'll now do is we'll go on to the situation of summing up. We'll sum it in the order of the presentations. So beginning with Helen. Anything to say, Helen?
Nothing further, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Foster, is there anything you wish to say in summing up?
I think I've probably covered everything, so I won't take up any more of your time. But thank you very much for having me here today.
Thanks very much. Mr. Cornan, Professor Lockhurst, your summing up, please.
Nothing from me, please, Chair, just to say thank you very much for convening the subcommittee online.
And I second those thanks, Councillor Carr. Councillors, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you. Stephen, anything in summing up or not?
Bear with me, Chair. Yes, just I'm sure I don't need to tell you all this, for the benefit of the other parties present. You've heard from all of the relevant parties now. You need to deliberate regarding the evidence, your decision and the reasons for your decision. You have the substantial written representations of 19 objectors. You've heard the verbal evidence of Mr. Foster, and you've heard from the applicant, Professor Lockhurst. You need to attach the appropriate weight to each representation. Obviously, I'm going to be able to give you legal advice regarding the decision, but ultimately you need to set your minds to the question, well, is this licence going to undermine the 4 licensing objectives? If you feel it is, then you need to consider whether conditions can be attached or limitations put in place to address those concerns. Ultimately, if you feel conditions or limitations cannot address those concerns, you need to set your mind to whether the licence should be granted at all. You know that you have to have due consideration of the Council's statement of licensing policy. It's been referred to a number of times in the hearing, and obviously you're aware of the Section 182 guidance. I know you're all familiar with that. Just very briefly say thank you for everyone for your patience in taking part in today's hearing. I know it's testing, and we've had a couple of technical IT glitches, not through anybody's fault here. Everyone's input is greatly appreciated, so I hope you all feel you've had ample opportunity to express your views, and it's now a matter of the subcommittee going away and deliberating. If you make it clear, Chair, which 3 councillors are going to do that, that would be helpful.
I'm going to do that now. I will chair the deliberations. Councillor John Blakey and Councillor Carol Hampson will be the other 2 sitting with me, and we make the deliberations. Now, can I say thank you to everyone for taking part? Sorry for the minor problems that we've had, but I hope everybody has had an equal and fair say. And are you happy with the hearing that has gone ahead today? Mr. Foster, are you happy enough?
Yes, I'm perfectly happy. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I hope I said all the right things.
As long as you've had a fair hearing.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Ricky Corn and Professor Lockhurst, are you happy that you've had a fair hearing?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor.
Thanks very much. Well, as far as I'm aware, I haven't been advised of any other business, so that is the end of the hearing. The Two of the members will join me now. We'll go into deliberations, and Stephen, we'll send for you when we need you to give us advice on the decision. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you. Bye.
Aye.